sees the memes of production, and the like and subscribe button. There's a reason why the AFD has shot up in popularity only recently, as opposed to, like, emerging from a long-standing conservative tradition, like, say, Meloni's party in Italy, right? Like, basically Mussolini's party. In that case, you have, of course, fascists, you have conservatives, you have fascists, but you have them kind of locked in the legacy of that European country's experience with fascism, whereas the AFD genuinely seems to be, for the most part, completely guided by internet posters. Does that make sense? It's the same with Reform UK. Yeah, 100%. Reform UK is the same way. Le Pen is a lot more France-coded, I would say. There's more legacy. Don't be mistaken, the AFD is full of former neo-Nazis. No. I'm not saying that they're not real Nazis. I'm saying that America is the center of the world culturally, and I think that some political parties are more likely to borrow from American conservative or talking points than others. You know? There's a reason why AFD posting is so prominent online. How often do you see the Italian fascist Meloni posting, like, perfectly aligning with American alt-right talking points? I've seen it a few times, but it's definitely not as common, especially considering the fact that Meloni actually leads Italy. The AFD hasn't won yet. They're all globalists. These damn Nazis are globalists. Yeah, I will never forgive this. Germany, you have a lot to answer for. This is maybe the worst thing your country has ever done. But, like, look at this. Can you understand by looking at this that this isn't about Germany or Germans and is about American racist forum posters, like on 4chan or Twitter? You understand what I'm talking about, right? This billboard was not made for Germans. Anyway, let's watch the damn speech.
We think it's an important part of being in a shared alliance together that the Europeans step up while America focuses on areas of the world that are in great danger. But let me also ask you, how will you even begin to think through the kinds of budgeting questions if we don't know what it is that we are defending in the first place? I've heard a lot already in my conversations, and I've had many great conversations with many people gathered here in this room. I've heard a lot about what you need to defend yourselves from, and of course that's important. But what has seemed a little bit less clear to me, and certainly I think to many of the citizens of Europe, is what exactly it is that you're defending yourselves for. What is the positive vision that animates this shared security compact that we all believe is so important? And I believe deeply that there is no security if you are afraid of the voices, the opinions, and the conscience that guide your very own people.
Was this really, like, the best possible time to do the Gamergate free speech speech? The Munich Security Conference? Like, the audience is full of generals. Like, like, not political officials in the, in the strictest sense, but, thick-necked, steely-faced, crew-cut generals.
Europe faces many challenges, but the crisis this continent faces right now, the crisis I believe we all face together, is one of our own making.
There are NATO members sleeping in the audience.
If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you. Nor, for that matter, is there anything that you can do for the American people who elected me and elected President Trump. You need democratic mandates to accomplish anything of value in the coming years. Have we learned nothing that thin mandates produce unstable results? But there is so much of value that can be accomplished with the kind of democratic mandate that I think will come from being more responsive to the voices of your citizens. If you're going to enjoy competitive economies, if you're going to enjoy affordable energy and secure supply chains, then you need mandates to govern, because you have to make difficult choices to enjoy all of these things. And of course, we know that very well in America.
Okay, this speech was a big enough deal that it has a lengthy Wikipedia page and a reaction section. I just want to see what they're saying. CNN noted that most conference attendees who listened to Vance's speech sat stony-faced, interrupting the vice president's speech with sparse and modest applause. Vance only briefly mentioned the Russia-Ukraine conflict, disappointing attendees that had hoped to learn more about the Trump administration's plan for peace negotiations. An unnamed Eastern European representative said that Vance's speech was the only topic other officials were discussing during the summit. All right, well, no press is bad press. Several U.S. and European diplomats and officials expressed dismay as the speech occurred, with one claiming that it led to a room full of people with their mouth open. A former House Democratic member accused Vance of victim-blaming Europe for its response to election interference by Russia, said Vance was interfering with European elections. John Cornyn, Republican senator for Texas, okay, we know how this will go, expressed hope that the speech caused Europeans to realize that their free ride on the coattails of America had ended. Yep, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Commenting on J.D. Vance's speech, German Minister of Defense Boris Pistorius said Vance's comparison of parts of Europe to authoritarian regimes was not acceptable. The head of EU diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, I don't know what country that's from, said she had the feeling that the US was trying to pick a fight with us. Foreign Minister of Sweden, Maria Malmer Sternegard, declined to directly comment about Vance's mention of the Quran burning convictions. Former PM of Sweden, Carl Bildt, called Vance's speech, quote, significantly worse than expected, and accused Vance of blatant interference in the German election campaign in favor of far-right AFD. Prime Minister of Norway shit-talked it. Le Monde referenced ideological war against Europe. Politico described the speech as a wrecking ball to the summit, having brought culture war to Europe. Brought? It was already there. Fact-checking, Scotland. Donald Trump praised Vance's speech. Nice. So literally no positive words from anybody from Europe, except for, I assume, the AFD.
You cannot win a democratic mandate by censoring your opponents or putting them in jail. Whether that's
the fact that they call single speech interference them out. No, well, it is, though. That's 100% true. Musk and J.D. Vance are absolutely trying to push AFD to win big in the coming elections. And also, stuff like this used to be completely taboo. Like, an American elected official going abroad and using what's supposed to be a security conference speech to instead lambast culture war talking points and basically like repeat misinformation that plays into the propaganda of the right wing in the country that he's speaking in. This was totally off the table until very recently, it seems. So no, that's fair. Kallas is Estonian. Well, they produce Disco Elysium, so I'm pro Estonia.
The leader of the opposition, a humble Christian praying in her own home, or a journalist trying to report the news. Nor can you win one by disregarding your basic electorate on questions like who gets to be a part of our shared society. And of all the pressing challenges that the nations represented here face, I believe there is nothing more urgent than mass migration.
Oh,
Today,
yeah.
Almost 1 in 5 people living in this country moved here from abroad. That is, of course, an all-time high. It's a similar number, by the way, in the United States, also an all-time high. The number of immigrants who entered the EU from non-EU countries doubled between 2021 and 2022 alone, and of course, it's gotten much higher since. And we know the situation, it didn't materialize in a vacuum. It's the result of a series of conscious decisions made by politicians all over the continent and others across the world over the span of a decade. We saw the horrors wrought by these decisions yesterday in this very city. And of course, I can't bring it up again without thinking about the terrible victims who had a beautiful winter day in Munich ruined. Our thoughts and prayers are with them and will remain with them. But why did this happen in the first place? It's a terrible story, but it's one we've heard way too many times in Europe and unfortunately too many times in the United States as well. And asylum
it literally is just like an AFD speech, you know?
Often a young man in his mid-20s, already known to police, rams a car into a crowd and shatters a community. How many times must we suffer these appalling setbacks before we change course and take our shared civilization in a new direction? No voter on this continent went to the ballot box to open the floodgates to millions of unvetted immigrants. But you know what they did vote for? In England, they voted for Brexit, and agree or disagree, they voted for it. And more all over Europe, they're voting.
I love how effortlessly he shifts between, like, we have the infinite mandate of 1.8%, and like it or dislike it, they voted for it. Like, you alternate between this is what the people currently want in droves versus like, well, it happened, and like procedurally Brexit happened and they didn't undo it, so it happened.
For political leaders who promise to put an end to out-of-control migration. Now, I happen to agree with a lot of these concerns, but you don't have to agree with me. I just think that people care about their homes, they care about their dreams, they care about their safety and their capacity to provide for themselves and their children.
Yeah, I know that the UK isn't in the EU anymore, but they are still in NATO, and they're not happy with Brexit. A lot of them regret Brexit. It didn't go well, you know? My hope is that the wild unpopularity of this administration will make certain talking points less popular, because there are a lot of people in Europe who would agree with this anti-immigrant rhetoric, but they also hate JD Vance, you know? Maybe it gives him like a bad taste in your mouth, you know? Seeing him rep those positions. Well, maybe.
And they're smart. I think this is one of the most important things I've learned in my brief time in politics. Contrary to what you might hear a couple mountains over in Davos, the citizens of all of our nations don't generally think of themselves as educated animals or as interchangeable cogs of a global economy. And it's hardly surprising that they don't want to be shuffled about or relentlessly ignored by their leaders. And it is the business of democracy to adjudicate these big questions at the ballot box. I believe that dismissing
this is
people,
a security
dismissing their
conference.
concerns, or worse yet, shutting down media, shutting down elections, or shutting people out of the political process.
Sir, these are generals. You can tell by the pretty shiny buttons on their shoulder or whatever. Is this really the right time to be doing this?
Process protects nothing. In fact, it is the most surefire way to destroy democracy. And speaking up and expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk.
Ooh. Yeah, that's the clip that I saw. And how well it played out. How is that even slightly comparable? Me, when my brain is molten soup, and has been pulped by the culture war. Remember that, like, 17-year-old girl with the pigtails who asked you to stop mining as much? The one who was, like, largely popular and was held up and celebrated in a lot of circles, at least until she got really based and started to be, like, a socialist and anti-Zionist. Yeah, well, so basically, like, let Elon Musk rule you. What, who is this for? You can survive a few months of Elon Musk? Motherfucker, he's not even an elected official in our country. Do you mean he's gonna be for them too? What do you mean by that? You can survive a few months of Elon? You know what? This isn't even AFD posting. This is purely like Elon wrote this into the script. What else can you say? Literally, like, what else can you say than that? Like what? Why would you say that? Why would you say that? You can survive Elon? The comparison is insane. For no reason, you're implicating yourself by suggesting that they'll have to be burdened with Elon, a thing they'll have to survive. In what capacity would this survival take place? Insane.
But what German democracy...
Let's hear that crazy delivery again.
Democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk. But what German democracy...
that pause for the audience, and you literally hear a guy clearing his throat.
Can survive a few months of Elon Musk. But what German democracy... What no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered. Democracy rests on the sacred principle that the voice of the people matters. There's no room for firewalls. You either uphold the principle or you don't. Europeans, the people, have a voice. European leaders have a choice. And my strong belief is that we do not need to be afraid of the future. You can embrace what your people tell you, even when it's surprising, even when you don't agree. And if you do so, you can face the future with certainty and with confidence, knowing that the nation stands behind each of you. And that, to me, is the great magic of democracy. It's not in these stone buildings or beautiful hotels. It's not even in
the real magic of democracy is manufacturing and then sustaining the collective imagination of a mandate that gives you infinite leeway to do whatever you want. Exactly.
Great institutions that we have built together as a shared society. To believe in democracy is to understand that each of our citizens has wisdom and has a voice. And if we refuse to listen to that voice, even our most successful fights will secure very little. As Pope John Paul II, in my view, one of the most extraordinary champions of democracy on this continent or any other, once said, "Do not be afraid. We shouldn't be afraid of our people, even when they express views that disagree with their leadership." Thank you all. Good luck to all of you. God bless you.
The crazy thing, too, I guess, is that in addition to this entire speech being awful, like morally in its intended effect, it also doesn't, like, what is the central message of this? It seems like the only thing he really wanted to say was, don't arrest people for being conservative. But he didn't even deliver on that point very well. A lot of this was like empty euphemism. You understand what I'm talking about? Like if there was an intended message, an intended delivery here, it wasn't even followed up on very strongly. The speech was so bad it led to an emergency meeting. Yeah, I saw this. And then of course you have the the Ukraine peace talks being held without Ukraine or anyone in Europe, despite their continuous involvement in providing Ukraine weapons. This was aimed at an American audience. No, I don't think it was. I think it was aimed at the AfD. I think that the German election is going to be the German election and what happens after it is going to be like the pivotal moment in how Europe responds to the second Trump administration. Not only because Germany is the largest country there and the most administratively powerful, not only because it's, you know, the AfD is like the most far right of the viable parties in those countries, but also because, is Germany really that much of a hegemony in the EU? Kind of, yeah. But we need to see, like, to what extent will this work? You know, the most recent polls for the election seem dark. You have linked me an image that is not a poll. The image you've linked me isn't a poll. Germany. We did just see the youth vote. We did just see the mock election they did for the youth, in which the highest, Die Linke was the most supported. We're gonna have to see how it goes. Die Linke 21%. Yeah. Opinion polling for the German federal election. Here we go. We'll go by the Wikipedia aggregate because I don't know as much about European elections or the, you know, the exact way in which they the polling data is sort of structured. Yeah, but up here you have the Union, the Conservatives, then over here the AfD in second, and then the SPD, the Green Party, and then Die Linke has been rising. Sorry, Die Linke has been rising, but they're still down here in the shits. They are above the 5% threshold, at least in the polling. We'll have to see. How long do we have? When is the election again? How long do we have? 8 days. Phew. 8 days. Latest polling has Die Linke at 9% in general. God damn, the dark horse comeback. No pun intended. Well, even if Die Linke ended up getting an astonishing 10%, you know, if you average that out, like 10% there, 15% for Green, 15% for SPD, you're not getting a majority. You're not getting a majority. But we'll see. What's the BSW? Pro-Russia party, basically. Oh, it's over? Hold on. Again, the unpopularity of Vance might negatively galvanize people against the AfD. Why is the AfD allowed to exist in Germany if they're literally Nazis? Because liberals are pussies. Also, you're forgetting, there's another possibility. If the AfD underperforms in the election relative to the polling, the conservatives might be less willing to build a coalition with them because they no longer feel like the rising star. Right now, the AfD's popular mandate, as understood by the German public, it's built on their rise, not just their flat popularity, but their rise to popularity, which predicts a trend. If they end up underperforming relative to expected results, it is possible that it could kill their aura. But we'll see. We'll see. But they're the only right-wing party they can work with any electoral viability. Every other party above 5% is left-wing. Yep. And it's possible that as a consequence of that, we might get like a stagnated German parliament. Like they might, like, but if there is not enough willingness to work with the AfD, then it might just be a hung parliament. They might just, like, nothing might happen for a while. That's how we got Hitler. All of this is how we got Hitler. Or worse, the libs form a coalition with them. The SPD is not going to form a coalition with the AfD. Not on their own. That would be, that'd be pretty wacky. What's the union? Conservatives. Imagine CDU and SPD coalition. I mean, again, oh, look, this literally happened with Hitler, didn't it? Hitler was made chancellor because Hindenburg wanted to borrow his populist favor. Hindenburg was on the decline. Hitler was a rising star. He wanted to work with Hitler because he saw Hitler as like a sort of like populist force, right? If the AfD underperforms, maybe that kills some of the favor, right? It makes the AfD less attractive to work with. CDU-SPD coalition was literally the government pre-2021. I mean, that would be better than the AfD being part of the ruling coalition. It was von Papen. Hindenburg was senile at that point. Okay, all right, history nerds. I'm sorry, I don't fall asleep listening to the Rise of the Third Reich podcast or whatever. You think Europe could fall to fascism again? Yeah, but you can stop it if you like and subscribe. Ring the bell to get informed. You get the notifications if I put out new content. And donate if you're able to. And then I think we have a shot. Just saying, but the CDU has been picking up a lot of AfD staffers. That could potentially be a good or a bad thing. It's probably a bad thing. But look, we'll see. Keir Starmer says he wants ambitious security partnership with EU. Yeah. Yep, yerp. Man, I am out of it today. The Die Linke comeback is solely because of a viral speech from one of their politicians after Merz collaborated with the AfD. Good. God.